All right, time to bring in our panel this hour, and a welcome back for 2017 to Bruce Hawker and Grahame Morris, our regular political strategist. Great to see you. Very happy New Year, and thanks for being with us once again. And plenty to talk about, in fact, even though it's still only, mid-January. Let's just start on the reshuffle, an unexpected reshuffle, Grahame Morris, but it looks like it'll be a very limited one from what I'm told. Arthur Sinodinos, now acting in Sussan Ley's old job, is likely to hold on to it. Greg Hunt's being considered as well for this, but what's your thoughts and what's your mail on which way this is going to go?
Well, the sensible thing is to give it to Arthur Sinodinos. He can do the job. His bedside manner in health is pretty good. He does his media work well. He's the Cabinet Secretariat. I would replace him back with the old traditional sort of public servant person.
Yeah, just explain to us how this works, because it's a little unusual at the moment to have a Cabinet Secretary who is part of Cabinet.
It doesn't have to be. And in fact, if Arthur Sinodinos is made the minister, and you do what I think, the Prime Minister can reduce his cabinet by one. And you know, what does a Cabinet Secretary do? It pulls everyone together, makes sure that all the papers are there, gives the Prime Minister a bit of a heads up for some of the issues that are around, and gets a lot of the public servants doing a lot of paperwork. Well, a good person from Prime Minister and Cabinet, a good public servant, could do that job, and the Prime Minister could reduce his ministry by one. And it just makes sense that, to me, you have a minimalist reshuffle, and that's Arthur going in, and at some stage further down the track, we're only 6 months from election, then you have a proper reshuffle if you want one.
I mean, Bruce, what would you do if you're in the PM's shoes here? It's 6 months roughly since the election. Yes, it does mean one less woman in the cabinet, 6 down to 5 with Sussan Ley going. But do you agree that simply making Arthur Sinodinos the minister is probably the most sensible way to go here?
Yeah, well, I think Arthur Sinodinos is a very competent man. I'll make that absolutely clear, and I think you know, he would be a good choice in that regard. He has got a bit of form, of course, that will be brought up. The fact that he himself has had brushes with the ICAC, and that's part of the reason why he's not in the cabinet at the moment. That will invariably be brought up, particularly in the context of Sussan Ley, who's gone because of the travel rorts issue. So, having said that, I think if I was the Prime Minister, I'd be prepared to wear that, because Arthur has demonstrated in his time as the head of the Prime Minister's not the department, the office at the time of John Howard, that he's a very competent person. And I think
but on the ICAC stuff, I mean, you can imagine Labor would be able to put some, difficult questions to the PM the first day or two that Parliament's back, as to why he's promoted him to cabinet. But I mean, could they sustain that for much longer?
Probably not. And frankly, I suspect that he's done his time. And it's probably about time that somebody of his ability was back on the front bench. That's my view.
Yeah. And the other question, Grahame, the PM probably faces, why has Sussan Ley gone? Why has she gone?
Look, it's a terrible start for the government for the year. But when I looked at it, I like Minister Ley. She did a media work well. She was sorting out that health issue. And she looked as if she's enjoying it. But there is absolutely no way, I think, that she could convince the Prime Minister that all of those trips to the Gold Coast, where incidentally her partner had a franchise, she couldn't convince them every one was legitimate. Now,
but she says she didn't break the rules.
No, that is true. But common sense would tell you that many trips to that place over that time could not be explained to the Prime Minister's...
Yeah, and the rules have still got to be fixed, haven't they? I mean...
And I think it's bloody terrible, because I thought she was terrific.
And look, she's not your carbon copy politician. She's got a fascinating life story, all of that, I agree. But the rules themselves, I think this independent agency the PM's announced is going to be a very positive development. But a lot of talk today, I know Chris Kenny's written about this in the Australian as well. Why do we still have spouse travel entitlement? To accompany MPs basically to anywhere in the country they choose. Should that just be restricted to, perhaps, if it has to stay, visits to Canberra while they're here in Parliament?
No, it shouldn't. And you know, I'm going to get up on my high horse here. I'm sick over the Christmas period. Nobody defending this. This is a very big country. And everyone complains. I never see my local politician, never see them. We had a stupid story last week where Senator Matthias Cormann, a Western Australian senator, had been to Broome 5 times in 5 years. Bugger me, it should have been twice that.
He is the senator for all of Western Australia.
You know, senators have to go all over the state. I reckon there's a bigger story finding out which ministers and which senators are not travelling around the country. Yeah, look, just on the wives thing, there are many, many functions where spouses are invited and you know, balls and all of that sort of thing. You feel like a shag on a rock if you haven't got your partner there. There are many, and they're entitled to have a certain number of
well, Bruce, do you agree? Should taxpayers be making sure that MPs don't feel like a shag on a rock when they're at a ball in a foreign city? Another city?
Look, I reckon we've got to be very careful here that these new rules don't do something really stupid so that Mother Teresa can't live with them. Politicians need to go to political events. They need to travel around the country, and all they've got to do is tweak a few things and make sure that a minister understands the word ethical.
Well, and of course, that's been a challenge for about 150 years now, but I'm sure it'll be sorted out in this term of Parliament. Look, I think the new oversight body should be able to deal with these issues about spouse travel. I mean, if they're doing their job and ministers are now responding and expecting to get some assistance in determining what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, then you don't actually have to be overly prescriptive about spouse travel, as long as it's not a rort and it's clear that that it falls within the rules, then that should be okay.
What about the federal ICAC idea, Bruce? I'm keen for your thoughts on this, because Rudd didn't do it, Gillard didn't do it. Now, Bill Shorten saying he wants an open, honest discussion about it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I think they should have done it years ago. The state governments do it, and always the federal politicians have held themselves out to be more ethical, and above all, the temptations that state and local government politicians are susceptible to. And unfortunately, we know from experience that they're not exempt. They are still vulnerable, and I don't see anything wrong with having an ICAC-style organisation overseeing the activities of federal politicians, because time and again they demonstrate through their own actions the need for such a body. And
Graham, what do you reckon?
I reckon Mr. Shorten will want to be very, very careful for what he wishes for. You know, all of these things, these travel things, that's not an ICAC-able thing. That's all been sorted out under the existing system. We would have 30 or 40 top investigators in this country sitting in Canberra looking at each other, unless they want to go and have a look at all of Mr. Shorten's union mates who have very, very questionable...
You've had inquiries into that.
Why do we see these stories all the time?
The reason you have an inquiry on these sorts of ICAC things is when there are land deals and that sort of stuff. Yeah. That is not Canberra. That is state politics.
There are contracts being let all the time. And
there are big defence contracts.
Very big contracts around the place. And I don't think there's anything wrong.
Not that we're suggesting anything untoward, but... That would be the case for it. Now, let me just get your thoughts on the inauguration. We're less than 5 days away now from Donald Trump finally becoming president. But boy, Bruce, it's hardly a smooth week or two leading up to the inauguration. This spat between Trump and the outgoing CIA boss, and I suppose the intelligence community more broadly, is really quite extraordinary.
Well, it is, and I think you take on the intelligence community at your own risk, even if you're Donald Trump. I mean, they are part of... the Uber establishment in the United States. I mean, there's nothing, I think, more powerful in the free world than these secret organisations that operate in the United States. And I just think that he is being very foolish in going after not just the outgoing head of the CIA, but also the whole organisation and the way in which he's treated them. This is the sort of thing...
I guess that's true, but you don't want an elected president to be scared of the officials at the CIA or the FBI or anywhere else. No. Nonetheless, this isn't a good look for the United States generally, Graham, is it, to have You know, the guy who's about to be president at war with the guys who are currently running these very powerful agencies.
I agree. And look, US officials tell me that they're thinking of changing the nuclear code button to 140 characters so that the new president can understand it. That's unfair.
That's unkind.
Look, I am trying to be.
idea.
I am trying.
It's a good idea.
I'm trying to be agnostic about the new president to be, but the more I see of them, the more I'm finding it really, really hard to think that there's an upside to this outfit or to this outcome. And let's just briefly. On one side, we have a leak saying that the Russians have some information on the president. If there are pictures, and that is ever revealed, that would be where he's got himself now. That is impeachable. On the other side, if it's not true, and all of this leak stuff is a fake, as he said, and is outrageous, I hope when he stops being he sues the pants off everyone and sends all these people bankrupt for disgraceful activities.
Well, we'll no doubt be talking about the inauguration when we catch up next week. We'll finally know what he's going to be saying at that all-important speech. Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris, good to catch up for the start of 2017 with both of you. Thanks very much. Talk again soon.
David.
Quick break and back with the last word.